Blah, 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 blah. The end. That was the nutshell of the video. I'm sorry. I don't know why I felt compelled to do that, but that's kind of how I feel about my own opinion sometimes. The audacity of picking up this recorder and speaking into it as if I actually have something true to say to you. It's quite arrogant. And I feel that even more so when I'm going to discuss a topic like this, but it has to be said. Or at least that's what I'm convinced of in this moment, and maybe I'll change my mind on that later. We shall see. I was watching this television show called 90 Day Fiancé the Other Way. And I won't bore you with the details of how I ended up watching this, but there was a scene in this particular episode that I saw which was chronicling an American who went to India to marry someone from that country. This is the premise of this quote-unquote reality television show. At this stage in the game, who knows how many of these people are actually actors versus real people? It's probably somewhere in the middle, who knows, but most likely a lot of actors are cast to play these roles because it's good television as opposed to real people who are actually doing this. It's like anything else. When it first started, it was probably real people more than fake people, but then they see the idea, catches on, they get good ratings, and then they kind of take over the show at that point. And for those of you who don't know, there is this thing called the K-1 visa in America where a foreigner who is not a U.S. citizen can obtain a green card through this visa process where they marry an American. And in the particular episode that I was watching, which is called The Other Way, the American goes to the other country and they engage in that visa process to be legal to work in that foreign country where they are not a citizen. They highlight who this woman is before she goes to India to give the viewer an idea of what she perceives herself as, the basics of who she is. And this particular woman described herself as quote-unquote spiritual. And what is the next scene? Well, of course, it's her with a tarot card deck. And then she's shown meditating and doing her daily affirmations and law of attraction type stuff. All of the things that could be loosely categorized as New Age spirituality. And I'm noticing that trend more and more now in the media where they have equated the word spiritual with those practices. And it's being highlighted more and more by the people that they promote. And this woman was a perfect example of that. I mean, you have to think there are executives at this studio who are very consciously choosing who they are going to feature on this platform that's going to reach millions and millions of eyes. I don't need to tell you that they manipulate us through this process. They get into her background a little more, and then they focus on her future husband, who she met over the internet, obviously, because he was in a foreign country, half across the world. And they get into his background, and he's kind of explaining his culture and what his religious beliefs are. And he states explicitly at one point, I manifested her into my life through his own meditation practices and that sort of thing. So the point is, they had this common bond via their religious beliefs. They were both quote-unquote spiritual. And what you have to pay attention to is how her spirituality meshed so precisely with his Hindu spirituality. And this is not anything new. All of you should know this, that the New Age quote-unquote spirituality is heavily influenced by Eastern philosophy, particularly the Hindu philosophy. Your average housewife who puts on yoga pants that shows the outline of her vagina as she goes to do this exercise doesn't realize that she is being indoctrinated with a Hindu practice via yoga. They don't understand that. They have no idea. They just think, oh, this is good for my body. I've even had close relatives tell me this. Oh, yeah, I know there's that stuff there, but I kind of just tune it out whenever they start talking about that stuff. I don't pay attention. I'm just there for the exercise. This particular relative of mine really likes hot yoga. And they would say, oh, it's great. You should try it. I feel so good afterwards. And I said, well, yeah, you could go in a sauna and get the exact same benefit. They didn't like that response. But spirituality, as it is being commodified in the Western world, is a repackaging of that Eastern philosophy. And I'm not saying there's anything bad inherently with it, or should I say, anything bad inherently with the people who adhere to it, any more than I would say that about a Christian who adheres to what the Pope says. There's nothing inherently wrong with the person. It's the belief system that they have melded into their being that is the problem. So please don't take this as an attack on a Hindu, what I'm saying here. And it's so interesting, as it tends to go, this woman who calls herself spiritual is the worst possible representative for that word, which is probably not by accident. But she goes over there and is dealing with a tough situation, not speaking the language and having to immediately adhere to all of these old traditions that Hindu women are supposed to adhere to when they become the wife of a household. And as an American who's been brainwashed with feminism and all of that, it's just totally outside of her idea of what is true. And she has all these problems with it. But what I mean more precisely is that people who engage with all the things that she engages with, the tarot cards, the crystals, the mantras, the meditations, transcendental meditations, all of that stuff invites things into your being that you're not consciously aware of. And she had these moments where she was screaming like she had been possessed, full of this angry energy, just exploded out of her. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, wow. Number one, this is what everyone thinks of a spiritual person now. Number two, this person is possessed by something. I don't know what, but something is feeding off of her anger in that moment and encouraging her to just lose herself in the moment. And I'm not too focused on that in the sense of, hey, relationships are like that sometimes. People fight. I don't know why. I mean, I never understood the point of fighting, but people like to do it for whatever reason. I don't know. It's one of those things you guys like to do. But 5 minutes earlier, it's the scenes of the guy saying, oh, I manifested her into my life via the law of attraction and my powers of manifestation. And she's sitting there saying the exact same things. We're twin flames. We're soulmates. And again, I'm not even judging them for that, because all of us can get swept away in that kind of idea when you instantly click with somebody and you can have those kinds of things floating around in your mind. It's not about that. It's the next scene where after they were married and did all of those rituals. The Hindu rituals for marriage are intense. They stay up for 48 hours and have just one thing they do after another. It's this whole big thing. And they're showing her kind of getting the lay of the land now that she's the wife and she's learning all of her daily chores and duties while the men are working. And his mother tells one of the people in the family, hey, go outside and get some cow dung. We're going to burn it. And you do you. Okay, again, this is not a judgment against Hindu people. You guys have a long history of doing things your way. It is what it is. But it was the most incredible juxtaposition of all of these things that can be considered New Age spirituality being associated with the next thing that they did, which was have somebody go outside, grab a pile of cow poop, bring it into their house, and light it on fire. So they had this burning cow turd in their house, spreading who knows what, and at the same time saying it's antimicrobial, which maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, I don't know. I should probably look into if this is a standard practice or maybe this was kind of a one-off thing. I don't know. But they did it. They lit this cow turd on fire. And before going forward, yes, I understand that the cow has a very sacred place in Indian culture. It's the sustainer of their civilization, and it makes sense that they venerate the animal in the way that they do. So I can see where that view of their excrement came from. If the cow itself is considered sacred, meaning so is the waste product. Because as a part of this, they also had a bottle of the cow urine that they were spreading around various parts of their place. And right before that, they had this altar that they set up with various burning incense and images, idols, all the things that were warned against in the West to stay away from. Well, they're embracing it openly, and they have these altars set up, and that's very occult, of course, in the way that they use those practices in various traditions of sorcery that were hidden for hundreds of years until they more recently became public knowledge. Which is to say, all of the things that the Hindus are doing, like everybody else, is coming from that place. We just don't know that. So it's just amazing to me. I wonder how many people who read Eckhart Tolle or anybody else promoted by Oprah and all of these other mainstream self-help type books that are drawing upon all of these things that have the Blavatsky syncretist flair to them, where it's all of these different ideas that have been put together in this melting pot, and nobody really knows where they come from, but it sounds so good. I wonder if any of them are aware that the source of a lot of those ideas, well, they're doing some things that you probably would look at and say, oh, I don't know if I should be believing everything that they believe if this is where it leads them. If I'm one step removed from burning a cow turd in my house, I don't know about this manifestation stuff. I don't know about this meditation stuff, these mantras they have me meditating towards over and over again. I don't know about all this now. Right? So I bring this story up just to show how easy it is to kind of poke fun at anything, any belief system. We could go through, and I have done this in many other videos, the Catholic Church and all of its issues. In that context, right, you would look at the Catholic Church and say, well, I think I would rather them be teaching things that would lead us to light poop on fire as opposed to molesting children secretly, our priests doing that. I think we would rather have the poop thing going on, right? So this isn't a judgment against any one belief system. This is just something that as a Westerner, you are not aware of because you're just accepting the propaganda without thinking about it in any way, shape, or form, or doing any kind of research into it. Because it sounds so great, because it really fluffs your ego up and makes you think, oh, I'm so powerful. I'm a co-creator. Obviously, there's levels to it. I'm talking about the most surface level, but as you get deeper into it, then you get into the Christ consciousness angle. Oh, yeah, that was just another in a long line of avatars who have that ability. And you have that ability too. I mean, you're going to be just like Jesus. You're God too. Just one lie after another, of course. But that is what it is. It's the merger of East and West together into this new religion. But I didn't even want to focus on that primarily. I had to get into it a little bit just to set the scene. Because what I want to talk about here is the development of propaganda. Meaning, if you have the thesis that I just went into, this new religion that's going to merge East and West together, we can loosely refer to it as a New Age religion. The revelation of the pure doctrine to the profane, as the occultists would put it. Well, you're going to need an antithesis to control the opposition. And that opposition is going to be allowed to get into a lot of what I just went into, to make fun of the New Agers, to point out how absurd a lot of it is. Earth is just a school for you to learn. And yeah, you just need to experience all of these terrible things over and over again so we all learn. That's why kids need to be raped. We have to learn. And on it goes with these ideas, right, that you can easily debunk with common sense. So what is the antithesis to a co-creator? Well, it's a co-destroyer, naturally. If you're telling people on one side that they are co-creators that can manifest anything that they want with the power of their mind, there are no limitations to what they can achieve, they are gods on earth on the same level as God itself. They can create anything. The antithesis to that is you are a co-destroyer, and you paint your picture of the world in the exact opposite way. This is a soul trap louche farm. This is a realm of evil. This is a hell realm. Everything that is here is actually evil and designed to enslave you. Your body itself is a cage. There is no virtue to your body. It's a gross creation. It's disgusting. Everything about this place is disgusting. And then the next step is, when we get out of here, you will be able to destroy this place. Do you see how that is the logical antithesis to the co-creator thesis? And yet, it's the exact same thing. On the one hand, you're saying, hey, I'm a co-creator. I have the power of God on earth. I can create anything that I want to. I'm so special. I was born here to do this thing and the other thing, and I can attract anything into my life that I want. I can do magic. I can classify it as white magic and say I'm battling the black magic, and I can do anything. I'm so special and powerful. And it's the exact same logic on the other side where you're saying, once I get out of here, that's the caveat, right? Once I get out of here, now I have the powers that I originally was supposed to have. Now I can manifest anything that I want. You're saying the exact same thing as the thing you're pointing your finger at now on Earth and the people who think they're co-creators, but it's just in a different context. Oh, now I have all of this power to destroy Earth. To destroy the creation. I have the power to seal people in here. As if you have that power. No, you don't. You have no idea what's going to be waiting for you on the other side of this. No clue. In many ways, what you just described there is even more delusional than the people who are on earth claiming that they're God. Right? Because at least the people on earth claiming that their mind is as powerful as God, they have things to go on, like the placebo effect. They can sit there and say, yeah, my mind is actually more powerful than I think it is. They actually have evidence. You have no evidence for your co-destroyer thesis where you're just thinking, well, I guess it should be like that once I get out of here. I'm going to have the power to destroy this place. And then you just spend the rest of your days here pointing your finger at how evil everything is. Thinking you're better than the New Age co-creators, when it's the exact same thing. It's the antithesis. So let me see if I have this correct here. All of these people over here who think that they're gods on earth and can create on the level of God, and indeed have been sent here to create a new earth of sorts, they're all delusional, right? We've established that. They're all suffering from some kind of New Age BS syndrome. Well, they're exposed, right? But you, on the other side, believe that when you leave your body, in whatever realm comes next, you're going to have godlike powers. You're going to have godlike ability to create and destroy on its level, and you will be sent to that realm after this one to either destroy Earth and manifest something better for everyone, or seal everyone in here as some kind of punishment because they couldn't see what you could see. And that is not delusional, even though it's the exact same ability, just in a different context. Do you see how that idea is so thoroughly exposed here by just a little simple common sense and logic? And yet the person who's the co-destroyer is even more arrogant than the New Ager in the way that they talk about other people in comparison to them. How dumb they are, how smart I am. That, ladies and gentlemen, is hypocrisy at its finest. Ooh, and it's a stinky cologne, isn't it? It just makes you clench up your nose like, ooh, gross, gross. That's the worst kind of thing to be, man. Nobody wants to be a hypocrite because it just, ooh, man, it's a stinky cologne, gross. And it's even worse when you don't even know you're being a hypocrite because you're under mind control, right? Because, oh, they called out this thing that I know isn't true, so they must be on my side. No, that's not how it works, unfortunately. Life is not that simple here. Someone is always trying to mislead you. And if you don't have the humility to understand that you can always be manipulated, no matter how advanced you think you are, you will never survive, mentally speaking. Eventually, this stuff will drive you loony if you don't have that center of gravity, known as humility. If you don't have it, you're lost. You don't stand a chance. Because your stream of consciousness is nonstop, 24/7, and it'll prop you up when it wants to, and it'll bring you down when it wants to. Whatever it feels like doing at any given point in time. And if you don't have that center of gravity, it'll turn you into the bipolar mind that it has and drive you insane. Or in this context, make it so nobody wants to hear anything that you have to say because you have no center. Listening to you is like listening to a roller coaster. I can't understand what they're saying. I can't understand what they're trying to communicate because they're all over the place. And voila, you have created a new propaganda matrix. You've created a new polarization where you have the co-creators on one end of the pole and you have the co-destroyers on the other end of the pole. And then from those two poles, you have all of the related subjects, like all of the black pill, manosphere stuff is closer to the co-destroyer end of the spectrum. That constant doom mentality of how evil and unfair life is. Obviously, you have all of the conspiracy theory stuff pumped by all of the Alex Jones clones, the constant doom scrolling that comes from them. The end is coming, I promise you, which is closely related to all of the religious programming and the rapture programming. And then the inversion of the rapture programming on the other pole are the New Agers who are constantly telling you about the event. This is the Dolores Cannon school. There's a newer lady, Allison Coe, who's kind of carried on that QHHT stuff, where they tell you, oh, don't worry, that the event is coming. Your ascension into a new dimension is coming in this new age. We're going to enter the fifth dimension. How cool is that? And it's just the inversion of the rapture story. That's even what Dolores Cannon said. She said, oh, there will be a new earth that you will reside on and everybody in the lower vibrations won't make it. And it's the exact same thing as the rapture. Where it's, oh, hey, the people who believe in this Christian view will be saved, and all of the sinners who didn't believe in it will be left behind. So where is the truth then? Well, it's likely smack dab in the middle of those two polar extremes, where there's parts from the one pole that are true that you got to bring into the middle, and there's parts from the other pole that are true that you got to bring into the middle. And when you get to that middle space, all of a sudden you start to look at the words of the man they call Jesus and you say, oh yeah, I think that's it, right? As if you discovered it and it wasn't always just sitting there for you. Because that is the path that man walked, the narrow one. And the truth on that narrow path is that God loves you and everyone on both sides of those poles and everywhere in between. And it's just sitting there thinking, I'm just waiting for you to grab onto me. I'm here. I'm ready whenever you are to repent from the error of your ways, to acknowledge that you don't know everything, to acknowledge that you are fallible and could have been deceived by something, even if you put yourself out there promoting it. Well, that's no big deal. Just put your tail between your legs for a little bit, admit you were wrong, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to hold it against you forever. When you are on the poles, everyone there convinces you that the other pole, the other side, cannot be saved. They're a lost cause. They're evil. They don't have a spirit. They're NPCs. Oh, those other people over there, they have such a low vibration. We just can't even interact with them. Their vibration is so low, they're just not even going to make it to the new earth. They won't even make it through the events. We just have to let them kind of stew in their own anger because they're not savable. Doesn't matter which side you're on. It's the same thing. And as I say all of that, this goes back to the beginning where it's like, man, even I'm probably repeating things during this recording that is not correct or that's unintentionally misleading in some way. And I have to accept that I'm doing that from time to time, which is why I come at you in the way that I do. Okay? Because I know that. And this is the kind of thing that we need to normalize in communication. If there is one thing that you take from any of these videos that I put up, it's that, please. The communication style is very important. Stop pretending to be something that you're not. So that we can speak to each other. The co-creator, co-destroyer dichotomy, the thesis, anti-thesis, is an example that everyone can understand. Especially if you've been into the material that we tend to talk about for a long time. I mean, you just understand what I mean when I go over that. But this applies to every part of reality. That which is in control of this world currently, it applies to it and all of its assets and agents just as much as it applies to human beings. We sit here and say, they are too far gone. They're evil. They're out of control. We have no hope. And they sit there and they look at us and they say, these people are so stupid. They have no hope. They're out of control. We have to get rid of them. Do you see? It's the same thing. Of course it's the same thing. Of course we would mirror the bipolar mind down here in the world. Of course that would be the way that it is. And of course our belief systems would be set up to mirror that bipolarity. And so they give you thesis and antithesis. See the patterns with this stuff. Look at the co-destroyers who are so arrogant in their idea of their own importance and how much they know about what's going on, how much they've figured out, that they point their finger at something and say, see, oh, look at how awful they are. Oh, they don't know anything. When at the same time, they're repeating the exact same logical idea in a different context. That in some ways, as I said, is worse than what the people they're pointing their finger at are doing. This is the delusion that people are suffering from. This idea that I've got everything figured out, I know, and now I'm in the seat of judgment. Now I know what everyone should think and say, and I know the way. Speaking about the power of the mind, yeah, the delusion is powerful enough that it can convince you to be a complete and utter fool and not know it. And every cult that's ever existed seizes on that ability to use for itself. And the world mirrors the mind in that way. Of course it does. Of course our minds mirror this bipolarity. Because the mind is bipolar. It's a mass mental illness. Exemplified by what I went into with the co-creators and the co-destroyers. So that's it for now. Later.